you're the Dokkenologist here, not me. Was there a moment that Lynch was sort of taking the temperature of joining Don's band around this time, or no? Meaning, could this possibly have been written when they were all together, or maybe it wasn't a song for Lynch's band, but Don sort of liked the riff or something?
I have no idea. Because, to be honest with you, and again, I don't know, I'm not saying definitively here, but Don was aware of George, and the only reason George ended up in the band was because Mick was playing with George. Okay. And he brought Mick in as the drummer, and Don was the guitarist. And then when they were recording what would be their debut release, they needed another guitarist, and Mick made the suggestion, hey, what about my friend George? And Don was like, I'm not too keen on that guy. He's a little unstable. He's a little, shaky, which ended up being the case because you talked to George about this, about the recording of the first Dokken record. And then he said that Don changed everything behind his back. Remember?
Remember that. Yeah.
And before the record was even done, George just up and left in the middle of the night. They were recording this thing over in Germany, and I guess there were still some tracks that needed to be finished or something. And so they were just like, yeah, well, we'll meet in the at the recording studio at such and such time. He said, oh, George already left. Yeah. He just up and left.
So they knew all along that they could not get along. But
Don was skeptical of George from before he even joined the band.
So what led him into the band? The talent? He was just so far above everybody else.
Yeah, the talent, of course.
Makes sense. I guess when you see that kind of talent, you've probably tried other guys. You're probably like, we'll figure it out. I'm sure, and especially knowing Don seems like that guy, we'll figure it out guy.
Well, Don has an eye for business, and he knows how, because he'd been in the business for a while at this point.
Sure.
And he was discovering and producing other bands. He basically got the band Black and Blue signed. And he
XYZ.
also discovered Great White when they were still Dante Fox.
Right.
And he produced their first record.
And XYZ,
XYZ.
Yeah.
Yep.
He found them too, didn't he?
Yeah. So he did other things aside from being a musician. He was pretty steeped in the music business, and he brought Michael Wagener from Germany over here.
Right.
Michael Wagener was an engineer producer guy in Germany, and Don brought him over here, and then everybody wanted to use him.
Right.
Because he worked on Skid Row records, and he worked on just
most of those 80s bands. Yeah.
You'll see Michael Wagner's name pop up on so many records from the 80s.
Yeah, he did a bunch. All right, let's move to the next, even more damning than the first one. And this one, I'm going to be honest. I don't know that I don't believe this, but my gut tells me this isn't true. For one reason only. We never heard about it until now.
Right.
And this seems like in the middle of their mudslinging, we would have heard about this. Like in the middle of the heated stuff.
Yeah.
This would have come up.
At the worst of their points.
Yeah, in the early 90s or whatever, when they really didn't like each other. And we never heard this until 2026, which makes it a little fishy. And plus, I'm also skeptical that the Judas Priest guys never, said anything, sued. I would think that if they stole a song from Judas Priest, that band would have sued. Wouldn't you think?
Yeah, and Dokken ended up opening for them.
Yeah.
on that, during that heavy metal parking lot video, you see, Dokken opening for Judas Priest.
Sure. All right, let me read the quote anyway. He added that Don routinely borrowed or outright stole songs from bands at the time. He also played a very deep track, a Judas Priest song, and announced to the audience it was his song. The balls on this guy are just crazy. And we never heard about this? That he was playing deep... All right, playing a deep track Judas Priest song is far different than playing a deep track of a band that didn't, like Excel, like we were doing last time we did this with the Metallica and Excel.
Right.
Playing an Excel track would be a deep track that an audience might not pick up on. Playing a Judas Priest song, even if it is track 9 on Rock-a-Rolla or something, someone is going to know in that audience, wouldn't you think?
You would think.
I have a hard time believing that he could have played in a room with 200, 500, 1,000 people, whatever it would have been, and no one knew a Judas Priest song. Nobody picked up on that. But now it comes out 45 years later. This one I would argue a little bit with. I would like some clarification on it. As where did it happen? What was the song? Did they play the song other times? Did maybe Don have permission since he knew the Judas Priest people? Did he need permission?
Well, again, he's talking really early here, so we're talking late 70s.
Yeah. Oh, that's true too. So it's 50 years ago. Well, maybe the Judas Priest song might have slipped through, but I don't know. Again, I didn't know Don at the time, so I don't know to say. But I find it very hard to believe that this story was the. I'm not saying it couldn't happen. I'm not saying I don't even believe that it could happen. I don't know Don well enough to know that. You do. I don't. I know this, though. I think we would have heard something as big as Dokken stealing and taking credit for a Judas Priest song somewhere along the way. From George, certainly, but even from like Jeff or one of these other guys would have known this story, wouldn't they?
You would think so.
You would think somebody would have, or even guys that aren't in the band but played a lot with the band. Maybe Juan Crucier or something. I mean, he was probably there when this happened. Never heard it from him either. And he's thrown his share of dirt every once in a while at Don, too. So I don't know about that one. I'm not saying it didn't happen. I just don't know.
I couldn't tell you.
All right. And then the last one, which I'm not going to lie, I laughed when I read this. Lynch didn't shy away from the controversial comparison, adding, I always say Don has the same exact personality traits and character as Donald Trump, except Trump's a better singer. What a fucking slap.